Round 11, the German Grand Prix, an absolute wet-dry thriller. One of the best races I can remember, so much action, and there's only really one place to start. So the first time we really knew that turn 16 was going to be a problem point was on lap 11, Charles Leclerc. So he comes over the brow of the crest of the chicane, flat out in the dry, but just got to blend out in the wet. Turns in, understeers wide, pretty simple, and he only just puts the left tyres over the sausage curb. That's not the problem. The problem is then that the tyres touch this runoff area, which is so slippery, and as soon as he does that, tries to get on the power, just gets an armful of oversteer and opposite lock to correct it. It looks inviting, it looks fine, you're a runoff area, you can get back on, no problem. Oh no, very different. As soon as they were getting on this, they were just a passenger, and Leclerc was the first man to find out. He got away with it, and he carried on. He carried on until lap 25, when he found the runoff area again, and this time he just understeers wide once more, goes even further off actually, but look how slowly he rejoins from this runoff area. He now knows that this is a slippery one, and he just cruises, ambles back onto the track, doesn't want to risk a massive slide again. He caught the last slide really well, but he very nearly spun, so this time very cautious. Third time, unlucky for Charles Leclerc now. Lap 28, look what happens now on the slick tyres. As soon as he turns in, the oversteer, and he's just breaking away at the rear, no grip there. Once again gets onto the slippery stuff on the outside. On those slicks, just no grip at all as soon as he goes off. It was bad enough on the wets, but on the slicks, he's just a passenger, straight to the wall. Absolutely furious, Leclerc.
No!
With himself, with the runoff area, he said it shouldn't have been allowed to have that drag strip there. It was not safe. Gave us some great action. Unlucky for Charles Leclerc, he was having a good race. He actually got up to second. Ferrari, this time, were doing great strategy calls with him. But just to prove how slippery it was down there, though, Lewis Hamilton had a crash out of sympathy, out of the race lead, under safety car, reduced speed, nothing to gain here for Hamilton. He's just trying to get round now. But what he does do is just give it a little hint of throttle as he comes through this right-hand part of the chicane. Just accelerates him a little bit towards turn 16. In reality, I'm sure he'll probably think that he didn't need to do that, but it just sent him that little bit in too quick. He then catches an oversteer by running wider onto the wetter patch on the track, and again gets onto this runoff area, and it's just like a boat heading towards the wall, nothing he can do. Mercedes car, don't know what they built it out of, but it's impressive that he managed to have that contact on the left front and get away with it. Must be built of steel. What he did do though, Hamilton, was come back into the pits immediately, as he should. He's just hit the wall and sustained some damage, but he did not go around the bollard. It's a penalisable offence for Hamilton there. Picked up 5 seconds, that's not the be all and end all. What was a lot worse was that the mechanics in the Mercedes garage weren't ready for him at all. So not only were they surprised to see Hamilton come in, they didn't have any tyres for him. When they did have tyres, they didn't know what they were putting on. Was it Inters? Was it another set of slicks? Pandemonium in the Mercedes garage. Can't remember them having that sort of issue before. Normally they're so calm and methodical, but this time all hell broke loose there. Hamilton lost a minute, and his race lead that he had for pretty much half the Grand Prix just evaporated. So Mercedes in this race, and particularly Lewis Hamilton in this race, coming across this bit of grass as well, but Hamilton knows this bit of grass quite well.
So box. Keep it saying now. No, stay up. In. Hey, man. No, sorry. Hey, just go. I was at the entry, man.
In these conditions, when it's raining, drying, raining again, the strategists really earn their money. So difficult to call. The drivers have got to be in cahoots with them as well and let them know what's going on track. And we saw last year the in, out message to Lewis Hamilton. This time, it was none of that. It was just a bit of surprise for the Mercedes mechanics in the garage. So the race carried on. We ended up back on slick tyres, but back to Mercedes, they lost a lot of time in doing this. They were still running second and third behind Verstappen. They should have probably pitted under the safety car. Meanwhile, Hamilton did 2 extra laps, and when he emerged from the pits, having taken his 5-second penalty as well, he was outside of the point. So strategy for Mercedes, not good in this Grand Prix. But the drivers were to blame as well for the end result. Hamilton on the charge then, just a bit eager at turn 1. And when you're on slicks on a drying track, there is usually just one line but you've got to stick to it. As soon as you put a wheel on the slick tyres on the wet part of the track, you are going to lose the car. There's no grip and you're going at dry racing speeds now. So Hamilton comes into to turn one, really quick corner, and he just gets slightly wide. There's a shiny patch, and I think he just touches the left rear, Hamilton, on that. And as soon as he does, the car's gone. He touches the wet patch and can't catch that. No chance at that speed when the car brakes so quickly. He just hits the left rear on the wall as well. Very lucky to continue. He's had a brush with the left front, the left rear, and now the left rear again. But this one, it damaged his race even further. And Bottas, lap 57, pretty much does the same thing. Just into turn one, super quick corner, and it's a little bit past the apex for Bottas. Hamilton's one was a bit earlier, but he does just drop a part of his left rear tyre onto the wet patch. This shot here, this aerial shot, is a really nice one to illustrate the tiny margins that these drivers are fighting with in these conditions. So on the way into the corner, if I pause it, look where Lance Stroll is. He's on the curb on the entry, right on the left-hand side. He's just opening the corner on the entry. Now look where Bottas is. He's not using that curb, so he's got a bit of space that he could use that clearly is dry enough. It's tough to know when it is because usually the curbs remain a little bit damp as well. So Stroll's braved it on that curb and he's got away with it. If we go towards the exit here, Stroll now keeps entirely in the dry patch. Bottas is a little bit tighter on the entry because he's not on that curb. If I pause it there, you can just see the left rear starts to get on that damp patch as he's burying in the throttle, trying to get on the power on the exit. And as soon as he touches that, he's just going round as a passenger and straight to the wall. Fast corner of the circuit, reasonable damage on the Mercedes. Race over for Bottas. Tiny, tiny errors, massive consequences in this Grand Prix. So both Mercedes in the wars, Charles Leclerc in the Ferrari in the wars. They were dropping like flies. Max Verstappen actually had a spin as well earlier on in the Grand Prix. The Red Bull team, this was a slight strategy error from them, putting him onto medium tyres instead of soft. In mixed conditions, the soft would be much better. They warm up quicker, they give you a lot more grip. And the warm up being slow, he spun coming out of the Sachs curve just before the little chicane down to 16. If he'd lost it at 16, he'd be in the wall, I'm quite sure, and he wouldn't have won the Grand Prix, but he spun just before and got away with it. Nice 360 pirouette. The other driver though, Pierre Gasly, in that team, made a couple of mistakes in the Grand Prix. Lap 6, and Gasly seemed to either miss his braking point down to turn 6 or go for the most ambitious move of all time. This is an illustration again of the spray, and this is not even full wet conditions, but Pierre Gasly's not seeing a lot. He's got Romain Grosjean and Daniel Ricciardo ahead of him, goes to the outside and he can't see a lot even in these conditions, and then just brakes way later than all of them. He's even coming around the outside of Kimi Raikkonen as well in the Alfa Romeo. From this, he pretty much dropped entirely to the back of the field. But lap 62, towards the end of the Grand Prix now, and he went for an overtake on Alexander Albon, another driver who had a fantastic race. Goes to the outside, Albon covers the inside very nicely in the Toro Rosso, and Gasly though on the better line, gets the straighter exit on the power earlier, and he's got the drive on Albon. It looks to me though like he simply misjudges the length of his car pretty much. Albon moves a little bit towards the right. He knows Gasly's there. He looks in the mirror to the left and then to the right, Alexander Albon. But Pierre Gasly just needed to move away from the back of Alexander Albon quicker. Onto the wet patch, might not have been too appealing, but he just misjudged that one, hit the back of Albon. The blame's with Gasly, I think, there, and end of his race. Verstappen winning another race. It's pretty tough times for him. The positive is Silverstone was good, qualifying in the dry was good, so there are positives for Gasly, but in terms of putting it together over a race weekend, he's still got a bit of work to do. Talking of contact in the midfield, the Haas drivers, again, after Silverstone, they were both ruled out of the race there with contact early on, and they're at it again. For the third time this year they've touched. Grosjean on the outside, Magnussen on the inside, both drivers not happy with each other. For me, this one looks absolutely clear. Magnussen's on the inside, he's not locked up, he's not out of control, and Grosjean, trying to actually overtake Kevin Magnussen on the outside, just turns straight into his rival.
My God, this guy is incredible. He will never learn.
I can't quite understand the logic for this from Grosjean. he knows surely that his rival's there. Is he missing some peripheral vision or something? Because as soon as he turns in, of course he's going to drive into the side of Magnussen, and he's done it a few times now, Grosjean, this year, just turning in and hitting the front wheel of the guy on the inside. So, bizarre one. They managed to get double points finish, which is great. They've been a team that's been struggling for a while, but they can't keep having silly contacts like this. Double points for Haas, and it was a brilliant day for some other midfielders. On this sort of day as a midfielder, you think there's a great chance of doing something special. Great chance of doing something terrible as well. That's the gamble of the wet-dry race, but it's the same for everyone. Even Robert Kubica, good job from him, beat George Russell and took a point for Williams. So that was something he probably never thought was going to happen at the start of the Grand Prix, or the team, even in their wildest dreams. But two midfielders ultimately stood out, Daniel Kvyat and Lance Stroll. Now the irony of this is that Stroll, for 2/3 of the race, was actually running behind George Russell in the Williams. When Stroll pitted for slick tyres, he was sandwiching Russell and Kubica. They had nothing to lose, Racing Point, 20 laps to go, and they gambled slick tyres. And this is the sort of thing that can pay off. Stroll gambled, he was correct, and he led the race for a short time, Lance Stroll. It really worked out, and on the slicks then, they were up to temperature in the groove quicker than everyone else as well. He did a great job. He kept Bottas behind, remember? Bottas got frustrated, crashed. Sebastian Vettel was a bit too quick in the Ferrari. Vettel was really up to speed on his soft tyres as well, and Daniel Kvyat drove a fine race. Passed Stroll and ultimately earned his podium. Really pleased for him. He's obviously had a real roller coaster in Formula One, and managed to get on the podium at the end. So three very happy guys on the podium. Verstappen winning another race, Vettel from the back to second place, and Daniel Kvyat a shock podium for Toro Rosso, the first since 2008. Incredible stuff.